Hello everybody, welcome back. Today's video is going to be about understanding what it means to know your inner self or know who you really are. I've been seeing a lot of comments saying, I don't know who I really am, or I don't know how to be myself, or I don't know who the real me is. And the truth is that there is no way to know the real self. There is no way to know your deepest, innermost self. And the reason for that is because who you really are is a dynamically changing, or I should say it's a dynamically flowing and ever-changing state of existence. You see, you are something that cannot be pinned down. Who you are as a person is something that cannot be pinned down by, and you attempt to. That's what we do. And that's why we all are so mixed up in our day-to-day lives, is because we attempt to pin this thing down. And we do that by applying opinions and traits, laws, or rules, more so rules, moral codes, accessories. This is how we attempt to define ourselves. You see, you try to define yourself because you identify yourself with things like your hair, your clothes, the music that you listen to, the experiences that you've had in your life, the people that you talk to, the opinions that you have, the things that you have, all of these things are things that you use as a form of pinning yourself down so that you can define yourself. And the fact of the matter is that none of these things are really you. Nothing that exists externally from you is going to define you as a person. Whether it be what you accomplish in the world, which is, if you really think about it, as an external thing. You see? Something that you accomplish is something external of you. Do you see that? Except for changes that you've made within, which can then be reflected in your external world. But the things that you accomplish, so this is the problem, you see, is that when we go through our day-to-day lives and we ask people, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a clerk. I'm a grocery store worker. I'm a police officer. I'm a doctor. You see, and you're using this as a form of your identity, but that's not really who you are. You see, that's not the real you. That is the job that you do. That's the hat that you wear. You go and you pretend to be this thing for this amount of time, for this many days. But that's not the truth of who you are, because the truth of who you are is not so easily pinned down. And how do you discover that? How do you try to bring that person out? How do you try to bring out the real self, the real you? You do that by letting go. The way that you bring out your inner self is by letting go, by not clinging to your possessions, by not clinging to your beliefs, by not clinging to the things that you like. All of these things that I mentioned earlier that you identify yourself with, you have to let them go. That does not mean that they're going to go away. You see, letting them go is not the same thing as throwing them away, because in a certain way, by pushing things away from you in an attempt to let go, as a method of trying to find the real self, is further defining yourself as somebody who is letting go, or rather somebody who is pushing things away. You are defining yourself with that. You see, you have to just be. Have you ever had a moment in your life where, and I've replied to a couple comments with this little bit of a spiel, but I'm going to go on it anyway because it's the best way that I know to explain it. Have you ever had a conversation with a person and you're sitting there and you're laughing and you're talking about all of these things and you're having such a great time in this conversation. It's like the best conversation ever. And you realize after about an hour or two has passed that you don't even really remember what you guys talked about. And, you know, it didn't seem like it took that long at all. It's like 2 hours went by in 5 minutes, you know? And the reason that that conversation was so enjoyable is because you were relaxed. And because you were relaxed during the conversation, you were just saying whatever came to mind. You weren't thinking about, well, is this person going to like this joke? Is this person going to agree with this opinion? Is this person going to accept me for having this interest? You see, and that thought pattern that you have when you talk to people is where your real true self gets buried. Now, you cannot lose the real self. It's not something that you can lose, but you bury it under these things by trying to pin it down. And the more that you try to pin it down, the more that it runs away from you. You see? So that's why those moments when you're having conversations with people and it just seems so natural, if you can extend that feeling of being almost unconscious of yourself in a certain way, if you can extend that to your day-to-day life, this is how you bring out the inner self. This is how you bring out who you really are, is by not trying to bring them out. And also not trying to push them away or hide them. When you're capable of not letting what people think of you control you and make you act certain ways, say certain things, when you're capable of removing that thought from your mind, which is something I should say that you do not have to forcefully remove this from your mind. You see, it's a sort of a flow state that you get into, and you can extend this. This is why people practice. One of the many reasons that people practice meditation is for this purpose, is to take a flow state in a controlled environment. And then this is a practice in Zen. They do Zazen, which is the sitting. And so you practice your meditation and your silence, and you eventually get to this point where you're in this kind of flow state from being in a meditative practice for so long. And then you take that flow state that you're in and you stand up and you start walking so that you can take that practice that you were doing while meditating and start extending it into your daily life. And the purpose is to integrate that feeling of being in a flow state without having to think about what you're doing, where you're going. You don't have to think about it. It just comes naturally to you. And you're taking that from the meditative practice, standing up, and then extending it into your daily life. And that's one of the many purposes of meditation. One of the many purposes of one of many forms of meditation. So, in short, let's recap. How do you bring out the inner self? You do not bring out the inner self. You allow the inner self to come out by becoming relaxed. I've said this before in a previous video as well. Being relaxed and intense. You are here. You are relaxed. You do not have to think more than once about what you're going to say. You do not have to think more than once about what you are going to do. If you have a big decision, just give it time. Instead of sitting down and obsessively trying to figure out what you're going to do about this decision, just give yourself time. Let's say you have a big decision to make. Give yourself 2 weeks and say, okay, on this day in 2 weeks, I'm going to make my decision. You see, because you do not have to actively force yourself to think about something. You will think about it anyway. You're going to think about it anyway. If you get a job offer and you don't know if you want the job offer and they tell you that you have a week, wait the week. Wait that week if you don't know. And just wait and then see what you say, see what happens, see what changes come. Because you might just think of something will just pop up in your head. It'll just come to you over the course of that time period. Another practice for bringing out the inner self that is very, very effective and very easy to do for everybody. Get a notebook, get a pen or a pencil or whatever you like to write with, sit down and for 20 minutes, You can listen to meditative music, you can sit in silence, whatever. Sit down for 20 minutes and just write down the first thing that comes to mind. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't even matter if it's the word It doesn't matter. Just write down the first thing that comes to mind. And then afterward, start reading it. And if you do that every day, that state that you're in when you're just writing down whatever comes up, and not hurriedly, you'll notice that it's not a hurried effort that you have to make in order to write down the first thing that you think. But that practice, you can take that and extend it into your daily life. And this is how you can learn how to more commonly be your real self. Be an authentic version of yourself rather than a watered down or amped up version of yourself. So I hope this video has been very helpful to you. Thank you guys so much for being here. The channel's doing great. I'm very proud of this community. I'm very happy to read all of your guys' comments. Still trying to reply to everybody. Please keep leaving your comments. Keep telling me what you think. Much love to all of you, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah.